behind the scenes with future country rock blues kings and queens. Discover 'em first with Palm Bash TV. Palm Bash TV.
Well, hello there. It's Palm Bash TV time again. Thank you so much for joining us. Got a great interview coming up shortly, but before we get into that, there's that subscribe button and bell buttons below you there. Just click that and you're always going to be notified of any new episodes coming your way. And leave a comment on the comment section if you'd like, and pay attention to the description part because it's going to have content info. And the same content info will be there at the closing credits at the end of the show, so I hope you'll stay tuned for that. From Melbourne Beach, Florida, today we have Eddy Mann. This is the second time he's been on our show, and I think you're really going to like, what he's got to say, and he's got a new song. And we're going to get to that in just 1 second, but first there's a quick word from the Caden Gordon Show and TLC Travel Agency, and the interview will begin in just a moment right after this, so don't go away.
The Caden Gordon Show. Today's best country mix is a 2-hour show playing independent and mainstream country music you know and love. Be sure to check it out at thecadengordonshow.com for more information on the show.
Ever thought about owning your own business? Tanya Lapsley-Cockett did. She decided a little over 5 years ago that she was going to be an entrepreneur, so she started her travel business. Tanya is married and works a full-time job. Her business has given her amazing opportunities. Not only does she get to help people create memories by booking their vacations, sporting and entertainment tickets, rental cars, etc., but it has also allowed her to help other families create legacy income. The travel industry is extremely lucrative and is an $8 trillion industry. The travel industry is projected to earn in excess of $15 trillion over the next 10 years. The travel industry pays its professionals up to 70 to 80% commission on the travel that they book for themselves and their clients. As a travel business owner, Tanya books travel and teaches others how to own and operate their own travel business. She is a director in training on the marketing side of her business, where she has helped over 90 families start their own businesses. If you're interested in owning your own travel business, please contact Tanya at 917-743-1199 or at ladytlc3555@me.com.
Okay, we're back, and with us from Melbourne Beach, Florida, we have Eddy Mann with us today. Thanks for joining us, Eddy.
It's a joy to be with you, Paul.
Well, all right. Well, everyone has their own story about how they become an artist. Let's hear your story. I mean, did you always want to ever since you were a kid, or did it fall much later than that? I mean, tell us in your own words. We'd love to hear.
I was a pretty shy kid growing up. Always a music buff. That was in my parents were. Father was a musician. My mother was a real creative. So that kind of lifestyle, I was kind of surrounded with that, and I was brought up as a church-going family. So things just kind of fell into place, and I had this. I was just a sports nut as a kid, and I was painfully shy. If I had to read in class or do something, it was the end of the world. But something happened when I put a guitar around my neck. I found my voice, found an enormous amount of courage to speak what was on my mind, and it was the kind of start of this journey of being a singer-songwriter and trying to share things to the world. Most of my songs are about how I'm dealing with surviving in the world. I'm a man of faith, so there's a lot of sound biblical teaching within the songs. But I mean, there's all kind of songs there. There's storytelling songs. There's songs that came from a time of prayer, and then there's some songs that are just plain worship songs. A couple albums that were laid out that way. But primarily, a lot of times when you look back in life and you have some distance, you kind of can connect the dots and you see how things were working, and and why you're on this journey that you're on, and that's how I am. I'm extremely confident in who I am and what I'm doing, and as long as I allow for me another voice, a spiritual voice, to speak through me, I feel great about what I do, and I'm trying to please an audience of one, as they say. I know I can't please everybody, and I'm not set out to do. I don't set out to do that. I set out to present a path. This is how I got through COVID. This is how I get through my teenage kids wreaking havoc. This is how we've gotten through illness in my life, and this is how I lost. This is how I got through losing two parents. Things of that sort, things that pretty much everybody's going to have at some point. Again, I kind of fell into it once I put that instrument around my neck.
Well, that is a great story, and and just like you said, a lot of people feel the same way. Once they're playing an instrument, they can speak just like you said, and there's a lot of artists like that, I think. Well, what were some of the groups that really influenced you in your music style? I mean, I'm sure there's a few that come to mind.
Wow. Well, let me go back a little bit and just let me expand a little bit more about growing up. My father was a bebop musician, pianist. So there was a lot of jazz in the house, but there was also some classical in the house, and there was also country in the house, and there was also you name it. I heard it, and naturally, with the advent of the late 50 kind of rockabilly stuff and rock stuff in the 60s. I'm kind of a historian that way. I always like to go back and listen to people to find influences more than anything else. So for me, my background is really wide. There's an awful lot of music in there, and because of that, I think I don't really fit into a category. It's kind of it seems to be defining people by category seems to be an old thing, maybe like a 20th century thing. And in the 21st century, people are writing and using influences from all over the world because we have access to it. It's much easier to listen to it today. So that being the case, the albums, from album to album, there could be a little bit of a different feel, but really from song to song, the music could go in any direction, because when I'm writing it, and even more importantly when I'm recording it, I don't want to force the song into any kind of box or any kind of space. I want the song to go where it feels like it needs to go, and I just kind of want to guide it there. And I feel like when I do that successfully, I'm much happier, and the song gets to a point where I'm willing to let it go into the world a lot quicker. If I'm forcing things, then it just doesn't sound right, and you end up going back in and you're reworking, and it's much more difficult. But your initial question of influences, if there's somebody I like, I was always a Jeff Beck fan as far as guitar, the actual instrument itself. If I played enough, if I practiced enough, I could do whatever he was doing. That wasn't what interested. What interested me was he heard this stuff. he was hearing it and playing it, and I wanted to. The only way I could get into his head and figure that out would be to go back and read articles and try to figure out what he listened to, the kind of music he grew up listening to, and it's actually what kind of led me back in for a while into a little bit of late 50s rockabilly, because when it came out I was too young to appreciate it. But there's a lot of circumstances like that where somebody play something on any instrument, and I might really be influenced by the sound, the mood, the color that they're creating. So for me, it's a matter of, I'm going to do a little research, I'm going to do a little digging into their upbringing, and what was their household like, what did they listen to, who are the artists they really like, trying to get some of that same stuff inside of me, and whatever you're listening to, whatever you're reading, all that stuff just kind of percolates, and then it finds its way out in your own creativity. So,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's varied for sure.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And you mentioned Jeff Beck. Yeah, he was definitely a legend. I remember a lot of the songs he had, like especially back in the '80s and '90s and stuff that he did, and I definitely agree with you. He was definitely a legendary guitar player for sure.
Yeah, he was a guy that could resurface every 3 or 4 years. You wouldn't hear from him in between albums, and then he would resurface with something that might be completely different. But it always had a unique sound to it, and I felt like he wasn't afraid to take chances and do some different things, even if I didn't enjoy it. I always respected the idea that he would go out on a limb and try something different.
Hmm. Well, now we're getting ready to play a video in just a minute, but before we do, they might want to download more of your songs. Are you on a lot of the streaming formats? And also, can we find you on
Yeah,
social media? Do you have an official website? Give us all the details on.
yeah. It's Eddy Mann, EDDYMANN. That website is just eddyman.com. You can find me on Spotify, Apple, wherever you, whatever you, whatever you fancy as a streaming or downloading platform. I'm there. I also have a Facebook presence, eddyman.musician. And on X and Instagram, it's Eddy_man. And I encourage people to communicate, be in conversation with me, whatever it is that might strike you. If I play something or sing something that just really gets on your nerves, or you don't agree with, let's be in conversation. I'm not offended by that. I like being challenged. I like my own walls being pushed out a little bit by listening to other people and talking to them, and certainly if you like something, feel free to communicate also.
All right. Well, you heard it from the man himself. Go to all those streaming sites and those social media sites, even his website, and just contact him and get to know him a little bit, and definitely download his songs. I know he would love you for that. And the song we were just talking about a minute ago is "A Humble Cottage by the Sea." I love this song, by the way. I've heard it. I played it a couple of times. And is there a story behind this song? It sounds like there would be a great story behind this.
Yeah, I have a new album called Turn Up the Divine that's
Hmm.
dropping on June 7th. And The Humble Cottage by the Sea is the first single that was just made available as a pre-order on May 1st. And it's a song that was really based on a gospel story of Simon Peter. His mother gets ill,
Hmm.
and Jesus shows up, without a band, without an invitation, so to speak. He shows up into this poor fisherman's kind of house or hut, and I think there's a really cool parallel to wherever we are in our life, that if you're a believer in Jesus, and if you're not, it's still a great parallel that this 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 person, this God of ours, shows up, whether more often than not, into small little huts as opposed to fancy palaces and mansions and stuff. And most of us don't live in a mansion. Most of us are struggling and getting by and moving through life. And there's a confidence, I think, and there's a comfort in knowing that he does that. And in knowing that he's, for me in my life, for my faith, part of the reason that I feel so strongly about that, and what I've recognized in my life, is that there's a sense that he's in the room all the time, that there's a sense that he's always listening, and anyone can reach out at any given time to find help, to find strength, to find comfort. It's not all roses. We don't always get what we want. Understanding why we need to go through what we go through sometimes, that's a part of it. But the song itself is just again hearkening back to that idea that there's somebody there for you, and you don't have to worry about your surroundings and where you're at currently in your walk. All you have to do is believe.
Hmm. Okay. Well, like I said, it is a great song, and I know everyone out there is dying to get into that. And it's a lyric video, by the way, so you can actually see the lyrics. And we'll get to that in a second. But Eddie, we thank you so much for being on the show today. We would love to have you come back sometime if you got anything new to plug for us.
Anytime, Paul, you give me a yell, and I'll reach out if I have something, a new release, or next single I release off the album, we'll get in touch with you.
Okay, well, that sounds good. And here it is, A Humble Cottage by the Sea by Eddy Mann, and it starts right now.
By the sea, sadness was draped about. The fisherman's wife was clinging to life, and hope was all but timed out. By the sea, they went to him with the matter. She'd fallen ill and now laid still, and their life was fixed to shatter. In a humble cottage by the sea, oh, he took her hand. In a humble cottage by the sea, oh, he raised her up. No sooner did the fever leave, a humble cottage by the sea. She brought the means to sup. In the humble cottage by the sea, the Lord of glory was sought. He entered in and lodged within, and a miracle he did wrought. In the humble cottage by the sea, he took her hand. In a humble cottage by the sea, then he raised her up. In a humble cottage by the sea, no sooner did the fever leave. In a humble cottage by the sea, brought the means to sup. In the humble cottage by the sea, where prayer is so besieged, he patiently waits our whims and fates, and his tender heart is reached.